Dan is in his mid-40s, a civilian employee with a successful professional career. He's lived most of his life in Europe and looked forward to many more years until he found out he's HIV positive. He has the virus, but has not yet developed any of the AIDS-related diseases that will eventually cut him down. Dan is not his real name, and he's agreed to talk to us if we disguise his face and voice. Family and close friends know he's HIV positive, but not his co-workers. Many also don't know he's homosexual, a risk factor that convinced him to take the test.
I knew people who I had been with sexually who were positive, or even had died. I had to be reassured of what my status was. So when I took the test, it was a confirmation of what I'd already suspected. I remember walking out of the doctor's office and thinking that I probably had now a limit to my life. In other words, I realized my own mortality, that there was a suddenness, a death sentence, if you will.
Dan wasn't diagnosed until 1988, but believes he's been positive for at least 10 years. He knows he won't have many more healthy years.
This comes from experience, having watched other people die, having read about people, having known people who are still long-term survivors, if you will. Some people have lived as long as 10 years before dying or getting ill. Some people have been ill over a period of time, and it's been a slow death, if you will, becoming sicker and sicker and sicker, and this is very painful to watch. And I feel today that I could go on living for another 3, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Do you ever think, hey, I can beat it? They're going to find it?
No. If they find something, yes, maybe I can beat it. I don't think I can beat it without there being a cure.
Next time, Dan tells how being HIV positive has changed his life. And later this week, we'll hear from Army medical professionals who treat AIDS patients here in Europe. Ann Mulligan, AFN News. When a doctor receives an HIV positive result, the soldier is the first to know. His commander is the second person to find out. Most are very compassionate and helpful. Lieutenant Colonel Eugene Etzkorn is a 7th MEDCOM consultant on infectious diseases and says the soldier will remain on active duty as long as he's physically healthy, but will be immediately reassigned to the U.S.
The preference is that they be assigned somewhere near one of the Army medical centers, or at least near an Army medical treatment facility, so that there can be some monitoring of the individual, some medical monitoring of the individual.
Before the soldier leaves Europe, the medical staff will sit down with him and his family and spell out the new rules they'll live by.
That any unprotected intercourse is putting the sexual partner at risk, whether it's homosexual or heterosexual intercourse. So I pretty much give the same advice. Likewise, if I discuss sharing of needles, whether the person ever uses drugs or not, I figure because I can't depend on them telling me, the absolute truth.
While soldiers must be reassigned to the States, family members and civilians who test positive can't be forced to leave. Dan is an AIDS-positive government civilian employee who has asked us to keep his identity secret. Knowledge that he could come down with the life-threatening diseases that accompany AIDS has changed his life.
My sexual life has been almost put on hold. I limit myself in that I do not go out and stay out all night.
Dan tested positive in 1988 but continues on the job. His coworkers don't know. He's being treated at an Army hospital.
I was diagnosed as having HIV in a military hospital. And my treatment from that point on has been the best. It couldn't have been better. People are compassionate. The people I have come into contact with have been very professional.
The average is 10 years from the time a person first comes in contact with the virus and the outbreak of actual AIDS. Dan figures he's at that 10-year mark now. What keeps him going is a support group. More on that in our next report. Ann Mulligan, AFN News. Dan is not his real name, and he's asked us to keep his identity confidential. A few friends and family know, but coworkers don't. One place Dan can let down his guard and talk candidly about what he's going through is at his weekly support group meeting at an Army hospital.
This group has been the saving grace for me because I have known people who, first of all, have died of AIDS. Some of them were members of the group, some were not. It is so helpful to have someone you can openly talk this issue with and not be concerned that you're going to be judged or not judged.
Helps them to actually live longer because they do have the support of their peers, people who are in the same boat that they are.
Carolyn Cannell is a community health nurse who advises the group. Tonight, because Dan has brought us, outsiders, along, only 2 others have shown up, Sam and Tom.
Because I remember when I found out that first week to 2 weeks was hell. And I would have loved to have somebody to talk to and said, oh my God, all of those fears and thoughts that we go through of I'm dying and I'm not going to make it and this is the end and all of those things that happen immediately, I would have loved to have had somebody there.
Being told directly that you are positive is a bit shocker, and I totally blocked it out till sometime later when I finally decided to not really accept it, but when it fell down up on me.
HIV positives like Sam, Tom, and Dan are still hiding their conditions from coworkers and acquaintances. Carolyn says it's not the kind of medical condition like cancer that you can find a lot of sympathy for outside of a support group.
Until you know someone who has died of AIDS, you will not know what it is like to experience this.
Ann Mulligan, AFN News.